It was the night of the rare blood moon, a deep, ruddy orb that hung low in the sky, casting an otherworldly glow over our quiet suburban neighborhood. I remember stepping outside that evening, drawn by a mix of dread and curiosity. The streetlights, normally familiar and comforting, now flickered under the moon's crimson light, transforming every shadow into something unsettling. I couldn't shake the feeling that the night was not like any other. As the hours slipped by, strange occurrences began to unfold. I noticed, first as a peripheral vision trick, that the shadows cast by our neighbors and even my own were behaving oddly. At first, I dismissed it as an effect of the eerie lighting. But soon, I saw a shadow detach itself from its owner. A figure walking its dog had its silhouette slowly peel away from the pavement, drifting across the lawn as if seeking something. In another instance, a neighbor's shadow lingered at the edge of her yard long after she had entered her house, moving with a deliberate, almost human intent. Whispers spread quickly through the neighborhood. Over hushed phone calls and furtive glances across white picket fences, people began to talk about the phenomenon. Some recalled an old urban legend, a tragic local murder from decades ago, when the blood moon was said to have witnessed unspeakable horror. They spoke of a young woman whose life was brutally cut short, and how, on nights like these, her spirit was rumored to roam the streets, her anguish manifesting as a detached shadow. That night, lying awake in my modest bedroom, I felt an inexplicable pull to investigate further. I sat by my window and watched as my own shadow, usually a static companion, seemed to twitch and stretch in unnatural ways. It was as if the blood moon had awakened something latent within all of us, a hidden part of our souls that longed to reveal secrets we had long kept buried. Even as fear crept over me, I resolved to uncover the truth behind these strange events. The blood moon wasn't just lighting up our streets, it was illuminating secrets that the years had carefully obscured. In the days that followed the blood moon, our once tranquil neighborhood transformed into a landscape of unease. The detached shadows became a daily spectacle. I began documenting every incident, setting up my camera in the front yard to capture these eerie anomalies. The footage was astonishing, a shadow that broke free from its owner and seemed to wander off on its own, another that paused at a doorway as if to whisper secrets to the dark. I soon realized these weren't random occurrences. Each separated shadow appeared to be drawn toward specific locations: old, neglected houses, overgrown lots, even the community park where memories of happier times were slowly fading away. One evening, I followed a particularly insistent shadow that drifted along the sidewalk and led me to an abandoned house at the edge of our block. Its peeling paint and broken windows spoke of decades of neglect, and there was an unmistakable air of melancholy about the place. Inside, amidst the decay, I found remnants of a forgotten past. Faded photographs, yellowed newspapers, and discarded trinkets hinted at a history that the neighborhood had tried hard to forget. As I sifted through these relics, I uncovered a local paper clipping detailing a gruesome murder: a young woman, full of promise, found lifeless under mysterious circumstances. The article mentioned the date, a night when the sky burned red, much like the current blood moon. The connection was chilling. Conversations with longtime residents deepened the mystery. Several whispered about a curse, a punishment cast upon the community after the brutal crime. Others spoke of seeing the victim's shadow wandering aimlessly on nights when the moon turned red, as though she sought justice or closure. The detached shadows, I began to suspect, were not merely visual anomalies but a supernatural echo of that long-buried tragedy. Every revelation added layers of sorrow and suspicion. Our suburb, once the picture of serene normalcy, was now a tapestry of hidden grief and unanswered questions. The blood moon had exposed not only spectral manifestations but also the dark undercurrents of a community that had long buried its painful history. With my camera rolling and my notebook filled with frantic scribbles, I knew I had to uncover the full truth behind the shadows and the murder that had haunted us for decades. My quest for answers led me deeper into the heart of our community's secrets. I began by interviewing those who had lived here long enough to remember the old tragedy. Over cups of weak coffee in dimly lit kitchens, elders recounted their memories of the murder, a tale filled with hushed tones, regret, and the burden of silence. Each account painted a picture of a vibrant young woman whose life was cut short by a betrayal so profound that it left scars on the very soul of the neighborhood. I spent hours at the local library, poring over archived newspapers and dusty police records. The details were murky. The case had gone cold decades ago, shrouded in speculation and deliberate silence. However, certain names kept surfacing, names of influential community members, respected for their philanthropic efforts, yet whispered about in connection with the tragedy. There were hints of a cover-up, a carefully orchestrated silence that protected those who might have had something to gain from the loss. As I pieced together the evidence, the behavior of the shadows began to offer its own clues. I noticed that some shadows seemed to congregate near a particular residence, a once stately home now hidden behind overgrown hedges. Intrigued, I approached the house under the cover of dusk. In the twilight, I observed a shadow detach from a figure standing at a window and slowly drift toward the neglected garden. I followed, careful to remain unseen, as if the shadow itself was guiding me to the next piece of the puzzle. Inside the house, I discovered remnants of a scandal that had been carefully buried. A locked drawer yielded a faded diary, filled with desperate entries about forbidden love, blackmail, and a fear that someone would expose the truth. The diary's entries culminated on the night of the murder, describing an altercation that spiraled out of control. It became clear that the tragedy was not random. It was the result of a personal betrayal, a secret that the very pillars of our community had tried to conceal. Each piece of evidence, every whispered testimony, confirmed my growing conviction: the blood moon had acted as a catalyst, drawing forth not only the physical manifestation of our shadows but also the painful, hidden truths of our collective past. I now carried a dossier of damning evidence, a tapestry woven from forgotten memories, spectral occurrences, and the chilling legacy of a murder that refused to die. The next blood moon arrived with a portentous air, its ruby glow transforming our neighborhood into a stage for the final act. I knew that on this night, the detached shadows would reveal what they had kept hidden for so long. With trepidation and resolve, I returned to the abandoned house where I'd found the diary, hoping that this final lunar phase would bring closure to the nightmare that had enveloped us. As the blood moon reached its zenith, the air seemed to hum with anticipation. In the dim light, the shadows grew bolder. I watched as the spectral forms moved with deliberate intent, converging at the heart of the old house's crumbling parlor. One shadow, more distinct than the rest, broke away from the cluster, a soft, mournful silhouette that glowed with an ethereal light. It drifted toward an old portrait that hung above the fireplace, the image of a young woman whose eyes seemed to plead for remembrance. With my heart pounding, I approached the portrait. Behind it, concealed by layers of dust and neglect, I discovered a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small wooden box, its surface intricately carved with symbols I did not recognize. Opening it, I found a collection of letters, photographs, and a final diary entry that detailed the murder in harrowing detail. The entry revealed a tangled web of passion, jealousy, and betrayal, implicating a prominent local figure whose name had long been whispered in hushed tones, a respected pillar of our community who had ensured the truth remained buried. Tears blurred my vision as I absorbed the magnitude of the revelation. The detached shadows had been more than eerie anomalies, they were the desperate voices of the past, demanding justice for a wrong that had festered for too long. As the blood moon began to wane, the shadows slowly returned to their owners, leaving behind a silence heavy with sorrow and revelation. I realized then that my role was far from over. The evidence I had gathered, every faded photograph, every anguished letter, was a testament to a tragedy that had poisoned our community. I resolved to share the truth, to force the light of day upon secrets that had thrived in darkness for decades. The final revelation was a bitter, necessary vindication for the lost soul whose life had been cut short. As the last sliver of the blood moon faded into night, I stepped out into the cool air, burdened yet resolute. The echoes of that tragic past, now exorcised by the spectral dance of our shadows, would forever alter our neighborhood. I knew that exposing this dark legacy would shatter the illusion of normalcy, but it was a price worth paying for truth and justice. The blood moon had served its purpose, and its legacy, etched into every lingering shadow, would never be forgotten.